This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And welcome to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And today is a solo Saturday. It's just me, all by my lonesome here in the studio. No guest, just me riffing, saying what's on my heart. Let me begin with a humongous and heartfelt congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, this is big. This is beautiful. This is the first step towards some major change in the United States. Well, let me tone it down a little bit and say, hopefully it's the first step towards major change in the United States. I think it will be. I don't think you could find two men who are more different than Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I think there's going to be change. I think it's going to be positive change. Now, that's not to be naive. I don't want to say that it's not going to be a rough road, because it is. I think a lot of people are going to resist this change. But I will say what Trump supporters said back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost. Get over it. In all seriousness, the American people have spoken. Forget about the conspiracy theories. Stop it, people. Stop that. If you can't do your own fact checking and back things up, just because Trump says it doesn't mean it's true. Just because a website says it doesn't mean it's true. Just because Trump followers and supporters say it, it does not make it true. When it comes to these conspiracy theories and these accusations of voter fraud, there are no documented incidences or occurrences of voter fraud in the 2020 election. So stop it. Just stop it. And I say congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden, and I say job well done, because major news sources are now announcing that the current situation is such that the remaining votes that have yet to be counted, there are, not all votes have been counted at this point, but the votes that are remaining are not enough for Trump to swing things to his favor and win the election. We're talking mostly about Pennsylvania, but it does appear that it is pretty much the same situation with Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona. That is to say that it does not look like there's any mathematical pathway for Trump to turn the tides and allow this election to go in his favor. So I will say congratulations to Joe Biden. I am not a news source. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political pundit. So I'm just going off of information that I have gathered and fact-checked. Okay? Try that, people. Fact-checked myself, which have led me to believe that Joe Biden will or is the president-elect. It has been announced on major news sources. So there we go. First step in a new direction for America. Did you guys see Van Jones? Look it up. Van Jones crying after the presidential announcement. After the announcement that Biden is the president-elect. He was on CNN and he broke down in tears. And for those who are prone to troll Van Jones, I ask that you put that on pause. Search it up on Google and find that little snippet there where Van Jones broke down crying, and he tells you why he was crying. It was a very emotional moment. I feel that it's a very emotional moment. Love him or not, you must admit that during these last 4 years, there have been many more incidents of blatant racism. This man has somehow been able to make people feel more comfortable with displaying their racism. And people like Van Jones, people like myself, yeah, black people, black parents, we have felt that. We have felt that. This new era of blatant, open racism. People are no longer afraid to hide their racism, and it makes things dangerous for us out on the streets. Again, love Trump or not, you must admit that that is the case. Truth, fact checks. Excuse me, I had to take a little drink of water there. So I just wanted to jump on the mic and do this solo Saturday episode. It's been quite a while since I've done a solo Saturday episode. Here a few days ago, I did do a solo episode. But I don't know. I've been enjoying having guests on. I've been enjoying meeting new people through my podcast. So that's why I've been a little bit absent in this solo capacity. But, thinking about the election, that it seems to have finally come to an end, I just felt a burden was off my shoulders, and I just felt like sharing my positive feelings about the conclusion of this wild roller coaster ride that has been the 2020 election, this wild roller coaster ride that has been the Trump administration since 2016. I, for one, am very glad to see it come to an end. One thing that President-elect Biden said was that he does not want to be a Democrat president. He wants to be an American president. He will do his best to represent everyone. Amen to that. I can get on board with that. I can get on board with anything that brings this country back together. Stop with the hatred. Stop with the foolish conspiracy theories. Take a deep breath and let's be a United States of America again. Can we try that? Can we give that a shot? So yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest. I also wanted to get another thing off my chest. Here a couple of days ago, it was the 1-year anniversary of my son Johnny's death. As my listeners know from previous episodes, I've talked about my son Johnny and his death. He died from a heroin overdose. He had a problem with opiates. And unfortunately, it took his life a year ago, just a couple of days ago. I'm here to tell you it hasn't gotten easier. As I've said many times before, I have, to a large degree, used this podcast in a therapeutic sense, kind of like a buffer between myself and the reality of my son being gone. I started this podcast as a search for a new motivation, a new inspiration, something that could lift me out of the depression that fell on me when my son passed, because the depression did fall on me, and that depression is still on me. It has not been lifted. So it's not a mission accomplished type of thing. It's not a celebratory anniversary of his death. I'm still struggling with it. And I'm not saying this to say poor me. I'm saying this to inform. I'm saying this to share. Some people feel a burden. They feel a responsibility to deal with their losses, the loss of a loved one in this case. They have a responsibility to quickly deal with that and quickly move on and kind of put it behind them. And of course, if you're able to do that, sincerely do that, and truly do that, then that is a great thing. But the reality of it is people deal with loss in different ways. I have no idea how to deal with mine. Like I said, this podcast and my journey of meeting people who inspire me, meeting people who I think are interesting, people who I think can teach me something, which will then strengthen me, which will then put me in a better situation to deal with my loss, my deficiency, which again will then put me in a situation to where I am stronger and more able to help others who may be struggling in some way. The short story is that the short story of the reason for my podcast is that, I'm searching for comfort. I'm searching for strength and understanding, which will then put me in a position to where I could possibly help others do the same. So the struggle continues. The death of my son is not any easier to deal with. If anything, it's harder, if that makes sense to you. It's been rough the last few days. It's been a strange last few days because here comes Snoopy checking on her man. What's up, Snoop? Huh? Yeah. Okay, you want to step back? There's a black man at work here. What was I talking about? Yeah, it's been, that was Snoopy, by the way, just sticking her head in the door here, being cute. But no, what I was talking about was it's been a crazy, crazy last the last week. I've had 4 national media appearances over the last few days, twice on the radio and twice on TV, with national coverage. And while that is a very cool thing to experience, and believe me, I feel blessed and privileged to be allowed, to be invited on that platform. I didn't ask for it. They came to me, and that is such a humbling experience. Again, I feel so fortunate and blessed to be invited to speak and appear on a national level platform like that here in Norway. So it's very cool. It's great, to be heard. It's great to be able to promote myself and what I do. They asked me about my podcast, and it's my podcast that has given me, that has opened the doors so that I can get that kind of attention, so that I can get those kind of invitations. So hats off to my podcast and what it has brought me. It's very cool, but it's also very tiring. I'm not used to that, and some people, maybe they do that, and that's just part of their daily grind. But for me, it's this extraordinary wow experience, kind of. So it's a mental strain that brings about a physical effect on me. I get so worn out after those things. I don't know what that is. It's kind of some sort of aftershock. Maybe it's adrenaline that hits me or whatever. And then when it has happened 4 times over the last 5 or 6 days, that's a lot of adrenaline. And so it's draining. So what does Arnold Schwarzenegger say? He says it's all about repetition. It's all reps. So come on, Norwegian media, give me some more invites so that I can get used to this. It's kind of, in a surrealistic way, it's kind of a dream come true to be able to get on a national platform like that. I do this podcast. I'm sitting here in my home studio. I'm doing my thing. It's just me. And then I sit afterwards and kind of cross my fingers and hope that people listen. But when I'm on a nationally broadcast news broadcast or a nationally broadcast radio episode, a radio broadcast that's broadcast nationally, that's different. At that point, I know people are listening to that particular piece that I'm giving right there. So it's a very humbling experience. I mean, I appreciate it and I enjoy it, but it's also quite humbling and very tiring. So I'm a little worn out. I think part of it is the language thing. I speak very well. I was going to be humble and say decent, but I speak good Norwegian. Thank you very much. but it comes at a cost. When I'm speaking English, I can just speak. But when I speak Norwegian, I go through this thought process. It's almost like a computer processor where you put in the information, it gets translated, and then it gets spit out in Norwegian. And that process is, you may not notice it, or Norwegians may not notice it when I'm speaking, but believe me, it is a process that is quite, I feel it. I feel it mentally. it's a little brain work that has to be done there to take my thoughts from my native and natural English and then put it out there in Norwegian. I'm sure that happens, in the little synapses of my noggin up there. It happens in microseconds, but it feels like this big, cumbersome and heavy project. So maybe that's part of why I'm so tired. My brain is tired, as Rocky Balboa would say. So, yeah, it's been a week of media work. I think they're gonna. I think the radio program had said they were going to. I did 2 different radio programs, and the one program I believe they said they were going to contact me again to kind of have a summary after the election has been called. So the election has been called today. Who knows? Maybe they'll call me tomorrow or Monday or something. So I will be heard again. I'll be on that platform yet again. But it's like a dream come true. I want to be heard. I want my podcast to be successful. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to do this. I guess any Joe Blow can make a podcast, but I'm really enjoying this, and I want to make it something special. I want to make it something that people enjoy listening to, because I definitely enjoy doing it. And again, the main goal, the main purpose of this podcast is to put these things out there in episodes with my guests, and they definitely inspire me. That's why I asked them to be my guests. And then my hope is that you, the listener, will also be inspired or be helped along the way on your little life journey, or your big life journey. Maybe it's a big life journey. I don't mean to minimalize your life, but that's basically the purpose of my podcast. So I hope you guys feel that. I hope it does something for you. It definitely does something for me. Wow, what a week! What a roller coaster. The relief and the satisfaction that this election is over and it's ended the way that I wanted it to end. And frankly, I'll say it ended in the way I believe the country needed it to end. I don't think we would have come out better with another 4 years of the way things have been now. I truly don't. He has his slogan, "Make America Great Again." Well, has he really done that? It's kind of funny. He was campaigning on how bad things are. So vote for me and get more of the same. That's basically, if you break it down, that's basically what he was campaigning on. And I thank the good Lord that enough people saw the BS and voted accordingly. It's a good thing. I was thinking, every time I watch the Tennessee Titans play, now an old classmate from high school, back home in Ohio, is the head of security for the Tennessee Titans. Hi, Shelly, if you're listening. You're probably not listening, but if you are, hi. She's the head of security. She's an old classmate of mine. And the coach, Vrabel, what's his name? Mike Vrabel, is the son of my, he was a basketball coach and gym teacher that I had back in middle school and high school. No, not high school. It was in middle school, 7th and 8th grade. 7th grade, I believe he was my gym teacher. And then in 8th grade, he was my basketball coach. No, yeah, he was my basketball coach my freshman year also as well. Yeah, Mike Vrabel's father was my coach. And I always chuckle because now my main sport was football. I was a tailback, running back, whatever you want to call it. I don't think they call them tailbacks these days. Everybody's a running back. Anyway, back then I was a tailback, or a halfback actually, because we ran from, now I'm getting into the technicalities of American football, but we ran either a T or a split formation. Those were the 2 formations we had. So technically I was a halfback. Anyway, so that was my main sport. And then I loved it so much. I was a darn good halfback or running back or tailback, whatever you want to call it. I was darn good. And I think part of that was because I was in training year round. If it wasn't football, it was basketball or track and field. And all of those things I did were to supplement my skills and conditioning for football. So all my years up until my freshman year, I played basketball on the side. I was a decent player. I wasn't great. I excelled in football, but I was a average, maybe slightly above average basketball player. But my freshman year, I decided that that I wanted to wrestle instead of playing basketball. Or am I thinking wrong? Maybe this was in 8th grade. I don't know. 8th or 9th grade. I can't remember. It was either my last year of middle school or my first year of high school. One or the other. I can't remember. That I went up to Coach Vrabel, Chuck Vrabel, and I told him, Coach, and this was like maybe, I don't even think we had our first game. We had just started practicing, and wrestling and basketball started at the same time. And I told him, Coach, I want to quit. I want to go over and wrestle. And I'll never forget, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to blackball the guy. I'm not trying to say he did anything wrong, but coaches and gym teachers and stuff back in those days, back in the 80s, were a little different. They were a little harsher. They were a little more direct. And I told him this, and he pretty much cussed me out and told me I was an idiot for quitting basketball. It was a waste of athleticism, he said. And I remember in my preteen or newly teenaged brain, that was just, for me, that was just a weird, I didn't know how to process that. So I didn't. I distinctly remember just walking off the court, and the next day was my first wrestling, practice. So it's funny. I just kind of I think of that every time I see the Tennessee Titans play on TV here. So that's my that's a little trip down memory lane every time I see the Titans or hear anything about them playing, because I think of Mike Vrabel's father, Chuck Vrabel, who was my gym teacher, and for a very brief period, was my basketball coach. And there's our trip down memory lane today. Yeah, that's, I just wanted to say those few things. Again, congratulations on the president-elect and vice president-elect. I think they're going to do a good job. It's going to be interesting to see how, I do believe people are going to actually ramp up the talk of conspiracy theories and stuff. And there's probably going to be a little violence in our streets. I don't want to make light of it, but I do expect there to be violence. But I will say to those potential rioters and people who will potentially commit violence, I want to say the same thing you said to people on the left, the so-called snowflakes on the left back in 2016. Get over it. Get used to it. He is your president. Okay? Yeah, I don't know. I'll never say that to anyone's face. I'm not that kind of person. But really, think about just think about how you felt when Trump won in 2016. How it was a new era for you. You were feeling good about things, and you just couldn't see why the other side couldn't accept it. Okay? Now the roles are reversed, and it's time for some soul searching. I'll say that the difference between 2016 and now is that, or the difference between a Trump presidency, the Trump leadership, the theme has not been all for one and one for all. He seems to be only interested in being the president of those who support him. I think that's going to change with this administration. He said it straight up. He wants to be a president of the United States of America, not the president of those who support him. So let's give him a chance to show that that's what he means. Stay home tonight, people. Don't hit the streets with violence. If you're going to hit the streets, do it in the name of peace. Do it in the name of change. If you can't stand the idea of Biden being your president, hey, that's fine. That's your right. But don't take it to the streets in a violent manner because you're not going to change anything. You're not. All you're doing is putting yourself and your fellow citizens in a potentially dangerous situation. For God's sake, don't do that. Stay home. Build a coalition that's going to make change, the change that you want in the political spectrum. Because going out in the streets and waving an AR-15 around, that's not going to lead to any political change. It's not. It's not. It may make you feel satisfied in the moment, but that's not going to bring any change. Unless you put bullets in your fellow citizens, then that's going to bring change for you and the people whom you harm. So think. Take a deep breath. Blow it out. Take another deep breath. Blow it out. And then act accordingly. And accordingly, in this case, is act like an American citizen, because that's what you are. Do the right thing as an American citizen. We can be political opponents, but why do you have to make it to where we are enemies? Let's not do that. Let's be political opponents. That's kind of fun. That's challenging. That leads to growth. That leads to intellectualism. Okay? There's no room to be enemies. That's I ain't hip with that. Okay? Daddy-o. Okay, so that is today's episode of the Coming Home Podcast. This has been a long-awaited solo Saturday. Spur of the moment, unscripted, heart on my sleeve, naked and afraid. That's me. Bye, everybody.
Thank you and goodbye.